Okay, it says I'm live. So let me see what YouTube says. There we go. Good. Excellent. And yes, of course I started a couple of minutes early because we have had technical issues here in the past. Morning, Squatch. If you're really serious, you can join the stream. Link is in the description from now on. I'm going to try to remember to always do that. Somebody keep an eye on me. Probably Asher. Okay, we got a couple more minutes, but I'm going to go ahead and start. Welcome to 23 December 2021. What do we got? I just did it this morning too. Oh yes, the importance of civil speech, universal time, eloquent language and why it matters, and then I'm going to make a little bit of a speech towards the end. There we go. Squatch, you have no guests tonight? What happened? You sick? Let me know. Morning, Cheese. Too close to Christmas. Got it. All right. Get off of me. Where was I? Oh, yes. The importance of civil speech. Now, you'd think coming from me, this would be an extremely hypocritical thing to say. I've told people in not nice terms, very, very brazen and blatant terms, that they should seek a permanent solution to their temporary problems. If you know the expression, you know what I just said. Let me think. I've said it on the channel once or twice during a live stream. Squatch actually witnessed the one time I didn't say it. I just encouraged the individual to permanently leave our nasty little family. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say, but instead I just banned his ass. It would be highly hypocritical of me to say that you need to watch your tone. No, actually, it wouldn't. When you are speaking to a complete stranger, you treat them as if they're a complete stranger. You do not make demands of them, and you do not make threats of them. All right, so what's going on here? Most of you know I'm active, much more active on Discord than I am anywhere else. There was a Discord. Somebody said something about a film. I asked a question about that film, and one of the moderators demanded that I drop the subject. This is like my fourth comment on that Discord. I hadn't even been there a week, and she's making this entirely inappropriate demand. I quit the Discord, and this Discord is also tied to a funding stream associated with the individual. I wasn't going to cut the funding to that individual, the owner, not the moderator. But, well, I told, I reached out to Fix and said, hey, could you contact Milk? There's a situation. She thought I was going to cut funding. As no, we're not going that far, honey. All of this over one completely inappropriate demand. And by the way, in case Milk ever catches up to this, or Dexter something, I can't even remember her name now. You don't get to say drop the subject after somebody else brought it up as a moderator and pretend you're not making a demand. One of the things that I absolutely insist on is honesty. You can't be honest, I can't deal with you. As you are speaking to a complete stranger, the F-bombs, I don't care about that. But you speak to them as if you were talking to your parents. All right? And if you don't like your parents, if you don't get along with your parents, you speak to them as if you were talking to your boss. How about that? Is that simple enough for everybody to understand? Also, don't rewrite in your head what they said. All right? Don't play stupid and take 2 words out of context. Show some basic civility. All right. Cheese Bear said, moderating Discord is not an easy thing to do. I utilize a hands-off approach. It's not worth getting in the middle between the owner and their supporter. This individual got involved of her own accord. Had nothing to do with the owner. Had nothing to do with the other member that I was responding to. She did this entirely on her own. Squatch, I didn't know you were on Discord. What the hell? Why aren't you on mine? All right. Won't make you a moderator, though. How about that? Okay, moving on. Yeah. When you're talking to a complete stranger, speak to them as though they were your boss. Don't rewrite what they said. Right? And do not pretend to misunderstand common expressions. This is actually pointed at somebody else entirely. L3 was talking about they were going to have a guest who had mixed some statements about the 2A community that were completely and utterly irresponsible. Just the title alone was irresponsible. I'm going to go one step further. The title was absolutely irresponsible, and the contents was no more. It was no better. I said on Instagram, I'd like to fight your friend. He pretended that fight your friend means actually climb in the ring with him because apparently he's a professional boxer. Okay. Sooner or later, I am going to be making that trip because I really want to kick his ass after the fight. One for lying and one for stabbing the entire 2A community in the back. Even people whose whole business model has been stabbing other 2A advocates in the back. Yeah, that's what I'm mad about. Bruh. Okay. Watch your language. Don't pretend to be stupid. Speak like it's your boss, and at the end of the day, assume good faith if you have to. You might have to learn this thing because it seems like there's a lot of people out there that don't have that capability. Do I have to harp on this subject anymore? Okay, Squatch. I will be home this evening. Actually, I'll be home right after the evening stream is done, so catch me there, and I'll see if I can walk you through. Yes, I'm using a Bluetooth mic. It's not a very good one, in case any of you hadn't noticed. It's a hand-me-down. It's the one I could afford. All right. Oh, that only took me 10 minutes. Well, that sucks. Moving on. Universal time. All right. I've mentioned this before. I'm a follower of Dr. Alan Renfro. According to his intro, Dr. Renfro started writing his book in the 1960s, but I'm looking over parts of the book and I'm seeing, no, that probably happened when he was a Lieutenant JG in the Navy in World War II. Specifically, some things that he references about writing and time, where he's talking about being a artillery, not a gunnery officer aboard a battleship during the Pacific campaign. He said an island, and I don't remember which one. There was some confusion and some things happened that could have been avoided. That was where all of his philosophy came. He was a doctorate of philosophy and English, according to his intro. And that's where all of his philosophy came from, avoiding confusion. I'll come into the second subject in a minute. But in the meantime, one of the things he advocated for, you know what? I don't want to talk about that first. I want to talk about some of the things he talked about outside. Somewhere around chapter 8 or so, with television starting to really come into power. He talked about live TV and how they'll have a panel of experts between 3 and 8 who would be able to answer questions from viewers that would be collected by people manning phones, telegraph, and etc. And they would all process through a central, the word he used. They're used in debates, not the M word. Curator, central curator, who would try to make all of these random questions into one universal question that the panel could answer. And then they would answer it on live TV. Okay. In case you're not catching on, we're doing that right now. He was talking about live streaming and chat before computers were even a concept outside of very, very sophisticated or experienced circles. We've got a moderator in here right now who is able to curate the questions in the chat. We actually have 3, but one doesn't have a computer anymore, and one never shows up. You got to start coming, honey. All right. Okay. Oh, thank you, Cheese. I appreciate that. No, Scotch. Your mic is way better than this thing. This is great for phones and for Discord and stuff like that. It's horrible for chat or for live stream. Don't do it. Moving on. All right. So that was what Dr. Renfro advocated way the hell back in the 1960s is what he claimed in the intro. The publication date of the copy I had was 1973, 74, something like that. That book was destroyed years ago. That copy was destroyed years ago. But something I found very curious is that it's really possible to fudge the records on those old hard copy books. So is it possible that I was the victim of a fraud? Yeah, I don't like it, and I don't want to believe it. It's possible that there was some things that he claimed that were not possible. One thing I do know, um, I remember having that book when I was little, like little, right? I remember because growing up, one of my classmates had the same last name, Renfro, and wondering if this was his uncle, or I did ask him at one point. I'd never heard of him, but whatever. Um, well, not whatever. Maybe there was no relationship. So okay, fine. This book predated the internet as we know it today by at least a decade. I'm just saying. One of the things he advocated, very particularly, was something called universal time. Universal time, and that's the term he used to name it, is just Greenwich Mean Time as we know it now. And he would actually go on to say GMT in parentheses. Universal time would be one time zone for the entire planet. And you would adjust based on where you are in the time zone, not one time zone, down to a 15-minute increment. I am 8 hours behind Greenwich Mean Time. Okay. I start work at 0900 my time. Okay. So I would start at 1700 Universal, and we get off 9 hours later, which is 0200 Universal time. This would put the entire world onto one time where we could always say, we're going to send the package out on Friday at 0500, and you're not having to adjust or realize that you're in two different time zones. And I've seen this a lot, especially on Discord. You got people in every time zone on Earth. All right. I've literally dealt with every time zone on Earth. Most of it across Europe or the Americas, but every time zone on Earth. They sometimes don't realize when I say 0500, I mean 0200 the next day for them, or 1900 for them, or whatever the time was for them. I made up those numbers off the top of my head. I know they're wrong. That's not the point here. We would all be on the same time, so we could coordinate actions that cross over time zone boundaries. Here's the interesting part. When he talked about that in his book, he cited a specific incident that he was involved in during the war. They were told that the assault would begin at 0900, 0500, whatever the hell time it was. If you can find the book, let me know. They were running off of Hawaii, the time in Hawaii. This is Saipan or Tinian or whatever. Now, the bridge had the correct time, but the gunners did not. And somebody forgot to adjust the time for the gunnery, and the bridge forgot to adjust relative to what time basically ship's time was. flag on the play. Gunnery assumed that the time was adjusted to reflect the time they should start shelling the island. The bridge assumed the gunners had adjusted their time. So now these two groups are working on two different times, and the gunners opened fire way too early, like a couple of hours early. All that did was tell the Japanese exactly what was going to happen next. The Marines and soldiers, I guess, were totally unready to begin. The Japanese knew what was coming. That whole assault was canceled, which only meant for one day, not a real disaster, but it could have turned into an absolute bloodbath. Because Dr. Renfro understood that people are stupid, he also said that for the first generation or so, you would list universal time and your own local time, or your proper local time. Let's pretend, for the sake of argument, that I work on Eastern Standard Time, even though I haven't lived in Eastern Standard Time in like 4 years now. 5. Okay, fine. For what it's worth, Daisy Cousins uses Eastern Standard Time as one of her two indicators. Okay, great, fine. I would adjust to what Eastern Standard Time would be wherever I really am, and have that in the parentheses. If I live in New York, obviously I probably would be using that time. And for the first generation or so, we would have to do it that way. And then over about a 10-year period, just sort of peter out until people stopped using it entirely. Also, he said something very interesting, 24-hour clock. He relates in the section on time how it was a fire brigade having a timing miscalculation. I was working off that information for like 15, 20 years when I found out, no, it was a railroad time confusion. The train left at 0700, not what we would now know as 1900. And the man who missed his train worked on fixing that problem permanently. That's why railroad time is the 24-hour clock that so many of you mistakenly refer to as military time. It's railroad time, not military. Military adopted it because they were forced to by the railroad during World War I. Okay, I'm caught up. Between the two of them, we could almost eliminate, we could eliminate all these kinds of confusions. There has got to be at least one person out there who's going to tune in at 1600 their local time, which will be about 6 hours after the stream, because they think, 1800, okay, that's what time he starts. And he tunes in and he's, wait, where is it? What happened to the live stream? Cheese, Squatch, I better not see the two of you do that. Or if you do, at least give me a wink or a tongue out, okay? Because I know you two know better. This would eliminate almost all confusion. You really should consider trying it. Cheese, don't comment in the stream in 6 hours. Where's the stream? What happened? Okay. Or if you do, at least give me a tongue out, so I know it's just a joke. Where was I? Oh, yes. You should really consider trying universal time. It is difficult to learn, especially the 24-hour clock. Um, your brain has been programmed to 12-hour. Okay, that's fine. Learning the new time system is learning a new language, although it's a simpler language than most. Here's the trick. All right, you've heard the add 12, subtract 12 p.m. Oh, for fuck's sake. That system is so confusing that I can't even repeat it myself. Right? Don't think about the add or subtract 12. Just think about you keep counting forward. Right? Noon is 12. That's easy. What's 12 plus 1? 13. Plus 2 is 14. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way down. It's just how many hours has it been since midnight? It's been, well, midnight was 14 hours ago, 14 hours and 22 minutes ago. Okay, so it's 14:22 now. It's actually, for me, it's 08:23, but you get the point. You just keep counting forward. 2300, this was a particular point of his. 0000 is the start of new day. It's the first incomplete minute, first incomplete second, first incomplete terasecond. All right. 2359 is 19 December. Excuse me, 24 December. 0000 is midnight, 25 December. Just avoid midnight entirely. All right. If it's something you can schedule, avoid midnight entirely. Write 0001 and you avoid the problem. Okay, Cheesebear asks, are you suggesting we adapt to 24-hour time, or are you suggesting we have a global centralized time which we all observe? Both. Actually, both. She goes on to say, numerous issues with that. Yes, that's one of the things that was addressed. Unfortunately, I'm not Dr. Renfro. I'm not nearly that smart, but one of the things that he did to try to address that was to say that for the first generation, you would write it both ways. And if I correct you on your spelling, you really, really screwed up so badly that I can't read it. Cast the first stone. Yeah, not me. Caucasian Sasquatch says, when I hosted Richie Rich, we ran into the date line problem. I think he means date time problem. So we Googled it, and Google got it wrong somehow. Okay. That's not good. That is extremely bad. He was literally at a hostel in Spain 24 hours before scheduled, said, but on time for me. Okay. So it sounds like it did work out in the end. I hope it did. Um, and yes, it will be clumsy and difficult to get used to the new system. That's unfortunate. A good way to get ready for using the one universal time is learn what your time is relative to GMT and just add that. Right? I'm saying it's 0826, but it's actually 1626. I do this all the time. I don't say it out loud because people will be confused. Once you start to get used to it, you'll be able to just slip right into it. And it is learning a new language. It's actually learning two new languages. Um, Once you learn it, and you can actually pick this one up pretty fast, you'll have it. Dr. Renfro said, a generation. I think he underestimates people's adaptability. Or he was referring to people who were older and unable to adapt. Um, Either way, I don't think it'll take 30 years, which is about a generation. I think it'll take about 5 years. Okay, Cheese Bear says, I anticipate it would be extremely difficult to have a centralized global time as people would need to change the day and date in the middle of their day. Yeah, that's the transitional process that I think will take 5 years, and Dr. Renfro thought would take about 30. Um, that's my opinion. And yeah, like I said, it's about learning this new system until it becomes first nature rather than second. All right, we're about halfway through the first hour. Uh, and as Bear notes, it would be much easier to have just one time and not show the Japanese positions. Did he say it was 2 or 3 hours early and force a mission to be scrubbed? It was actually an investigation, according to the doctor, into that shelling. In the end, it was just found that it was a communications breakdown. That would actually ring home again in the 1960s, I think it was, with the Bay of Pigs invasion. The Air Force showed up 2 hours after the landing because they were working in one time zone. Washington, D.C. was working in another time zone, and the landing was in a third time zone entirely. I'm just saying. Okay. You should really consider it. It is clumsy and difficult to learn at first. But once you get the hang of it, and it'll take you about a week, you really will understand it. Alrighty. I'm going to move on to the next subject. Okay. Eloquent speech. And hey, Totes, your timing is very, very good. I was about to start a subject that I think applies to you more than most in these chats. Also, check your email. Check your email. Check your email. Moving on. All right. Eloquent speech and why it matters. Eloquent speech does not mean large words, right? The hippocampus of the Saskatchewan salamandra is of 22.58 grams. That's not eloquent speech. That's ineloquent speech. Also, the lizard's brain is pretty fucking small. It's not eloquent speech. It's vulgar. There's actually a difference between vulgar and ineloquent. All right. There's also pretentious and eloquent. And therefore are not the same. Eloquent speech is when you can say something, anything at all, and it means exactly one thing and one thing only. I sometimes I sometimes understand the people that spurg out about clip versus magazine. All right. Sometimes I actually do get it. There is a difference. The difference is not that important. All right. Because I know Totes here, for example, does not understand the difference between a clip and a magazine. He just knows there's a difference. All right. And I can almost guarantee you Totes is about to say that he calls everything a clip because he sees me do it and thinks that that's right or something to that effect. I don't worry about that so much. But there is other things where that eloquence is very critical. It is not eloquent speech when you have to use 5 words to describe something in one. Right? A clock, not a mechanical timekeeping device. Okay, 4 words. Mechanical timekeeping device, or electronic timekeeping device, or nuclear timekeeping device, or just timekeeping device. That's not eloquent speech. A clock. That's eloquent speech. Everybody knows what a clock is. It's not hard. The reason it's important is you could be talking about something that's very, very complex in just a few words, not a million words. Chinese language is very, very good for eloquent speech because one word means an entire sentence. That's why if you speak Chinese and you, or understands Chinese at least, and you watch the series Firefly, you wonder what the hell they're talking about. On the series Firefly, there were 2 lingua francas, Chinese and English, and they would cuss at each other in Chinese. But in Chinese, one word means a whole sentence, or at least most of a sentence, and that's not much of a cuss. So they would say a whole paragraph to make it last a couple extra seconds. Totes is here with the jokes. Analog versus digital. Yeah. And analog, nuclear timekeeping device. Nuclear timekeeping device. That's 5 words. It's also impossible, but let's push on past that. Sometimes when you're using eloquent speech, you also have to use 2 words to describe something that sometimes 1 word would have done. All right? But it is worth the extra effort. Squatch, if Cheese or Totes or anybody else in the chat has a comment that's being hidden from me, of all people, please, by all means, unless it's racist, yeah, pretty much just racist, and it's not directed at me or homophobic or any other shit, and it's not directed at me, please allow it. Okay. I'm pretty sure Squatch knows that already, but all right. It matters because one word can change a whole lot of things. Now, Squatch caught the start. I think Cheese caught this rant. This demand by this moderator. That's right, she did catch it. All comes down to possibly one moment of ineloquent speech. No, it doesn't. But if it had been anybody other than a moderator, I asked a question. She said, I want you to drop the subject. Excuse me, I'm asking you to drop the subject. Well, from behind that moderator, she'll know that's a demand. Either way, she could have said nothing or asked why it's being brought up or whatever else. She could have spoken far more eloquently and gotten what she wanted instead. Yes, Squatch, I understand. Gotta protect channels first. All right, moving right along. We are at almost 1:40, and I'm through my main subjects. Okay. Eloquent speech is where you say one thing, it means one thing, quote, brooking no argument, end quote. That was actually from the Dr. Renfro's book. It was in reference to something a little bit different, but he does talk about the importance of clear speech. He didn't use the word eloquent. He used clear speech. At one point in the book, it was like the 3/4 way back. It was also it was really just a paragraph. It wasn't a full chapter. It's marked as a chapter, but nah, it was just one paragraph. Use the eloquent speech, and this sometimes requires you to think before you speak. Just say it. Oh. All right. For those of you paying attention to the chat, which is in the stream itself, so don't tell me you can't see it. Totes just made a comment. If I repeat this, they'll probably eat this stream. And he's saying that that's basically what they'll do. I'm surprised I'm even live now with that being there. And no, Totes, don't remove it. Squatch, don't remove it. Leave it there. He's right. That reminds me. Oh, excuse me. You're also not allowed to smoke or vape in a monetized live stream. And God knows I would never, ever break YouTube's rules. Of course, the channel's not monetized. But anyway, geez, we'll see you when you get back. If you get back. All right. please use eloquent speech. Think about what you're going to say, especially if it's a permanent thing. Yeah, it's that is a big rule. Totes, you obviously do not follow Viva Free. He does, I think, 3 live streams with Robert Barnes. He's a attorney out of Las Vegas. I actually met Bob once. Didn't think much of this fat guy at the party. And when I saw him in Viva's stream, I recognize that face. Oh, wow, that's the guy from that party 2 years ago. And since then, I've kind of I don't like Bob very much. But he is a big stickler about rules. He will sit there in a stream and play with his cigar. And after the stream, he lights up. You're not allowed to smoke in a monetized live stream. And we all love Susan here. Moving on. Okay. If you have any questions, guys, feel free to ask, please. Because that was strangely the end of my subjects. I thought it would last much, much longer. All right. I am going to, normally I would do Get Home Bag and then Dadislav. This week I'm going to start with Dadislav instead. Because this next one is kind of short. The one after that is really long. So I'm going to share a different screen. And I won't be able to see the chat for a moment, guys. You're just going to have to bear with me. Okay. Title 4, Penalties, Section 4. Any person who willfully ignores any part of this act upon first violation, fined, maybe upon first violation, fined not more than $100, upon second and subsequent violations, $500, upon fourth and subsequent violations, incarcerated not more than 23 months and 28 days and $1,000 fine. This includes failure to carry as required, carrying as prohibited, and use of terminology contrary to this act by anyone in a professional capacity. Failure to carry at the discretion of a court may be waived upon a payment of a $10 fine, not more than 3 times. All right. I could swear I read this last time, but anyway, any person who willfully ignores any part of this act can be fined. And it does not exceed $1,000. It does not exceed 24 months and 28 days because that makes it a felony, which is a mandatory exemption. And I foresaw the possibility of somebody just trying to felony out. I'll just ignore it until I have a felony on my record, and then they can't make me anymore. No, that's not how it works. This includes failure to carry as required, carrying as prohibited, and use of terminology contrary to this act by anyone in a professional capacity. All right, that's mainly the news media. They say assault weapon all the time. They know it's not an assault weapon, but they say the words anyways because that will scare you into compliance. That will terrorize you into compliance. If it were up to me, they would charge with terrorism. But whatever. Failure to carry at the discretion of a court may be waived upon a payment of a $10 fine not more than 3 times. This is the dumbass clause. You're just a dumbass, and you're going to keep being a dumbass. There is a lot of wiggle room in there. First of all, the court does not have to grant you the exemption. It's at the discretion of the court. And it doesn't say all courts. So if you really wanted to be anti-mandatory carry as a judge or as a courthouse in general, you might try moving suspects who've been charged with failure to carry around to different judges, because that is the court. So now, all of a sudden, this court has only seen this guy twice, this being the second time, but he's been in this courthouse 25 times in the last month. And he's paid $250 in fines. Well, it's technically permissible. That's kind of the way it is. I am going to take a quick peek at the chat, see if there were any questions. Okay. Right. Other provisions, exemptions. This is a long one. Mandatory exemptions. The following categories of persons shall or may be exempt. Convicted felons. Any person upon conviction of a felony crime who has not had their right to vote restored. Restoration of duty to carry is required for restoration of voting rights for any public office or to hold any public office. This exemption shall be imposed and explained to the convicted of any felony at time of sentencing. Okay. So the judge is sitting there and says, I sentence you to 40 months in prison. I'm exempting you from mandatory carry. Bailiff, take him away. All of that. It should be that simple. There is inevitably going to be somebody who makes a mistake. And a mistake is okay. There's going to inevitably be some judge who decides that he doesn't like that rule and he's going to do whatever the hell he wants anyways. Okay. It is what it is. Etc., etc. And we'll just have to deal with their crime once it happens. Drug abusers. Any person convicted of a crime where drug abuse is determined to be a factor has voluntarily committed to outpatient drug treatment or inpatient alcohol treatment facilities or has been referred to alternative judicial procedural system shall be exempt during treatment and beyond in not more than 6-month periods for any one exemption hearing or 2 years total. This exemption shall be imposed and explained at time of conviction treatment order. Okay, this is actually a whole lot simpler than it sounds. If you get in trouble because of your drug or alcohol abuse, you're exempt. It's not if you have a drug or alcohol problem. You check yourself into a drug rehab facility because you realize that you just bought a bottle of Vicodin on the black market or on the gray market at the very least, and you want to get your shit together. That doesn't make you exempt. You just went to somebody to buy a bottle of Vicodin on that gray market and he ripped you off and you beat the shit out of him. That may qualify. All right, this is a very simple concept. Drunk driving may qualify. All right. And it is what it is. You'll just have to deal. Mentally impaired. Any person involuntarily committed to a facility due to mental impairment, determined incompetent to stand trial, or has been placed into guardianship as an adult shall be exempt. This exemption shall be imposed and explained at the time of the ruling. Right? Those are actually pretty simple. You're not intellectually capable of taking care of yourself. It's as simple as that. We cannot expect you, therefore, to make proper and sound judgments. I'm going to scroll down just a little bit. Right. Psychological impairment. You're watching this in real time, guys. Any person involuntarily committed to a facility due to psychological impairment, determined incompetent to stand trial, or been placed into guardianship as an adult shall be exempt. This exemption shall be imposed and explained at time of ruling. Same thing. You're not capable of making a adult decision. We gotta let you go. We cannot hold everybody to that standard. All right. Physically disabled. Any person presenting to a competent jurist documentation of a physical disability to comply with the act, or to which the judge can, upon inspection on their own, determine incapacity to comply with the law, may be exempt. This exemption shall be imposed and explained at time of ruling. Well, if you're physically disabled, you should be applying anyway, but you have to have the words said to you so that you understand. And I call this the Stephen Hawking's exemption because the only way that he would have been able to comply with mandatory carry is to mount a pair of M134s off his wheelchair. That is a mem, guys. All right. Exempting Stephen Hawking's would be, I would be happy to have testified at his exemption hearing, personally. This is a joke, Your Honor. He cannot do it. There are other lesser reasons, and one of the ones that comes to mind is somebody who does not have arms or does not have hands due to some accident, birth defect, million other things that might make it physically impossible for them to do so. Now, may be exempt, not is exempt. You actually would have to go in and apply yourself. And if you think you're capable of doing it, but the next guy in line with the same medical problem does not think that they are capable of doing it, with the grace of God, go, both of ye. And don't start sitting now just because one of you has the exemption and the other does not. For those of you that are maybe a little behind the times, I'm a member of the Alita Army. We, and I caught the tail end of this. I hope my donation went through. I'm not sure. But we raised something like $1 million that went to getting somebody, some girl, I think. I don't remember now. Prosthetic arms. Most prosthetic arms right now are not capable of the degree of fine manipulation needed to actually use a gun. She would be exempt. There are better quality ones out there that might not be exempt. She goes and applies for an exemption, she gets it. The next guy in line who has the better quality one that does work, or would work, says, see, I have prosthetic arms. I'm exempt. Well, you know what? Grace God, go and don't start sinning now. Even though you lie, your feet stink, and Jesus hates your ass. Right? It is what it is. The next guy behind him has the same type of standby, guys. I just had somebody hop on. I'm going to find out what's going on. Okay, Mr. Foe, I will bring you in a moment. Let me get through this. I don't know you. I had a couple of problems, but let me get through this at least, all right? So yeah, that's a physical disability exemption. Okay. Indigent, any person incapable of compliance with the law. Compliance with the law based on a judicially reviewed status of homelessness may be exempt. Said exemption is granted as an affirmative defense to citation and upon determination remain as a prohibition to carry. I was indigent. I was homeless at one point. I would have been exempt back then. And I hate adding that exemption. That's the reason why actually I made it a may be exempt. You have to ask for it. All right. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, that's going to be a problem. I will deal with that later. At least I see it. All right. Membership in violent political organizations. Any person convicted of organizing, instigating, or aiding a violent political protest or a protest intended to create violence, even if no violence occurs, or interferes or attempts to interfere with voting, peaceful assembly, emergency services, or public safety personnel, or elected or other public officials in the performance of their duties shall be prohibited from bearing any weapons or any item determined by a peace officer to be intended for use as a weapon. This exemption shall be imposed and explained at time of sentencing and shall remain for the duration of their life unless the individual has had said conviction expunged, completed an additional 10 years without further political protests, and completed anger management training. While this exemption is in place, exempted under this section are forbidden to vote in any election for public office or hold any public office. Okay, this is the Antifa exemption. I originally wrote it with them in mind, and I realized, hey, wait a second. The KKK, the neo-Nazis, they would fit under this too. And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. Now, this is going to lead into some other questions about some events we're not supposed to talk about, namely the 6th January rally, where some people did turn violent. And some of them were the cops. Oh, yeah. And some people got caught up in situations that they should not have been involved in to begin with. Comes down to that conviction. And if you're an Antifa member and you threw a Molotov and you got away with it, congratulations, you're not exempt. Hopefully your family will step in and get you a psychological incompetence exemption. All right. Persons exempt under this section shall be prohibited from nor required to carry as restricted by a competent court, except any exemption under Part G or Part A pursuant to a conviction under this Act. Persons exempt under this section may have their exemptions rescinded at a later date as provided by law under the same conditions of restoration of franchise. Okay, that can't be Part A. So I'm going to have to go back and check that. Part G is Antifa. Part A should be mental incompetence. All the other sections, there's at least a vague possibility that someday you could get better or your situation could improve. And it is what it is. Persons exempt under Part G may only have their exemption status rescinded by dismissal or exoneration of the underlying criminal charges. That means you have to go back to court and prove, yeah, actually, it wasn't me. I pled guilty because I was facing 20 years in prison if I didn't, even though I didn't do anything wrong. Persons exempt under Part A may not have their franchise rights restored until such time as their duty to carry is restored. So it is the felony exemption. If you have a felony conviction, you lose your right to vote. You also lose your duty to carry. To get your right to vote back, you actually have to get your duty to carry back. This is the California clause because California abuses brazenly this felony voter thing. It's disgusting what they're doing, but okay. Any person who applies for mandatory exemption shall be exempt to such degree as approved by judge to include total restriction, partial, general restriction based on category, or selective. We get into that at a different time. Right now, I raced to get that done, and because I had a guest in here for a second, and it's a shame that you ran away. I try to give the benefit of the doubt. A couple of weeks ago when I had somebody in here, his username had every bad word in it. So I got the sense that no, he didn't belong here. Mandatory exemptions have to be approved by a judge, right? You can't just say, well, I mandatory carry. The man you see before you was charged with the felony once. It's true. It was an overcharge case that okay, me and my girlfriend maybe were not perfect. All right. This was not a felony by any stretch of the imagination. Worse still. Well, I'll get into all that. The DA charged us with the felony in an attempt to coerce us into pleading guilty to the misdemeanors. Okay. Well, my plea agreement was her charges are dismissed entirely, and fine, I'll plead guilty to make you go away. They also dismissed my felony charge, which, okay, fine, great, wonderful. I would have rather fought them on that, but whatever. Just because I was charged with a felony doesn't mean I was guilty. I have to have a judge say, yes, you're actually guilty first. Okay, I'm going to catch up on the chat because I had to look away from that for a while. Squatch, maybe if you get the channel monetized, have a second non-monetized channel instead, because asking your long-term viewers to switch to the new channel is very, very difficult. Living History Comes Live, his channel got yeeted. I know something about the case, and it is what it is. He lost all of his followers. They're not transitioning very well. Hell, I didn't know until I think it was a month later. I was like, where the fuck is Drew? Where the fuck is Drew? So just something to consider. I would consider monetizing my channel, but I would be following Ghost Tax model. Okay, well, I got a $6 super chat. That means $4 came into my pocket. No, $4 went into somebody else's pocket. That was my thought. Totes off topic. Because my full um, Totes is Total Control 871. I believe he nuked the YouTube channel, but the BitChute channel still exists. And I wish I'd never told you about BitChute, bro. At this point, because everything is there, and uh, BitChute is not loading for me, and it's pissing me off. It takes like 4 hours for me to watch you for 30 minutes. Oh, no. And now I know why he nuked his channel. He didn't nuke it. YouTube nuked him because they're... gotta watch my language here. The F word. Not fuck. The F word that you can't say on YouTube. Squatcher says is retrospective. What should have named the channel, maybe. Okay, Totes asks, what about ego? Example, worked at Target as a security. Memo came out of 2 off-duty guards using their shields as as law enforcement badges. Badges were newly issued. The new equipment went straight to the head. First of all, that's a felony, impersonating an officer. Second of all, I mean, that's not just an ego issue. That's a criminal issue. But as Squatch would say about a minute later, moron's gonna moron. Okay, that's why I do this, guys. Shit like that brings to my attention issues that I had never conceived of. And I really wish Brent was still around. I would be bouncing this off his head already. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. And by the way, ego could potentially be a psychological or mental exemption, which I think is where he was trying to go. Squatch said, this is the part I like. I'm not sure which part that was, so please drop that in the comments. Welcome back, Bear. Totes firmly believes that when your debt is paid, you get all your rights back. Okay, I can get to that in a minute. Vocabulary and math matter. Squatch said, I'd like to use pistols as ID serial numbers and all. When you ask for your ID, your functionally clean ID. Hey, Luke! I'm sorry I missed you. That was a few minutes ago. I think you're going to catch this. Squatch, hold on to that thought. That might be put in there somewhere. I'm not exactly sure how. I'll get back to you. Oh, you're on Rumble. Totes is on Rumble. You know, Totes. Okay, here it is. This is what I'm going to do. First of all, what the hell is that? Okay. Totes, I'm going to make you a moderator long enough to put that link up. We'll talk about you remaining a moderator in email. You have been around a while. And now that I am caught up, Squatch, I'll get to you about that destinations thing in a little bit. Totes, drop your links in the chat. You should be able to now make a test message just to make sure you got a wrenchy next to your name. In the meantime, yeah, Totes brought up an awesome question. What if you just get that power and you lose control of your own mind? I think that will only be a problem for one generation, right? After that, and well, and one generation, um, I mean, school terms, so about 12 to 14 years. At the start of this, going into even possibly Head Start, you're going to start learning about someday you're going to be required to carry a gun or you're going to be exempt. It's going to be one or the other. All right. You're going to be qualified to apply for a concealed carry permit, or you're going to have a mandatory exemption, probably for the well, you're going to have an exemption, probably for the rest of your life. And you're going to grow up learning this. Now, for those of you that think I'm full of shit, and I mentioned this last week, a shit ton of World War II era Arasakas were discovered under a school under demolition in Japan. What happened was the war ended. These guns were pulled together, they were dropped into a hole, and a school was built over it. I can't tell you why they did it this way, but I can tell you that that's what happened. Up until basically the day that those guns were dropped into the hole, all Japanese school children were expected to grow up learning about firearms. There was even a special type of Arisaka called the school's gun. It's a smooth bore. The firing chamber was made of pot metal. The gun was chambered to the same shell casing as the regular infantry rifle, and it would fire a 1/8 or 1/10, something like that, powered cartridge with a wax wad rather than a metal bullet to learn. So when you, especially the boys, when you are an adult and you're going into the Army or the Navy or the whatever, you'll know exactly how your rifle works. A bunch of those school's guns were brought to the United States as trophies after the war, and Americans, not knowing the difference, they thought this rifle's the same as that rifle. The Arisaka is the same as the last ditch or first generation war generation rifles. So they put the regular ammo in, not realizing that they put something in basically 10 times too powerful for the gun to use. Hence the myth that Arisakas would blow up each and every time. I'm just saying here, maybe we should also address that problem. But until then, and for those of you hating on totes already, y'all be very surprised. I'm actually pretty moderate. Yeah, there's a few things I'm extreme on. That's one of them. Well, this is one of them. And even in my extremism, I'm not that extreme. All right, I did go through the list and think about who should be exempt or under what circumstances or to what degree. There is actually an exemption for somebody who just does not want to carry at all and doesn't have an excuse. That's the guy that pays a fee. And if you can show me a single state of the union where you can drive with no seatbelt on by just paying a fee, drop it in the chat. I'd like to see what state that is. Moving on. So yeah, I believe that within about 12 to 14 years, those kids who were just going into Head Start, when this passes and this becomes a thing, will spend their entire school years learning about guns, understanding guns, they come out, their ego is pretty well checked. What the hell? Oh, okay. I saw that black line on my screen and I was tripping offline. Sorry, guys. So that goes to your head, power goes to your head thing shouldn't be an issue or shouldn't be as much of an issue. All right. And for what it's worth, Squatch, drop your channel. You have that wrench, do it. Squatch is mostly jokes and some Heinlein quotes. Bob Heinlein was actually my grandmother's uncle, my mother's uncle or cousin, something like that. I don't know. So she met him growing up. And I've read some of his books, and you'd be surprised. Although he never will come out and say mandatory carry, or well, he never did. If Bob was around today, he would be saying, yes, I see the point. No, I disagree, but I do see the point. And it is what it is. Also, please, for God's sakes, watch Starship Troopers once. 2, I guess. 3, skip it. Don't watch Starship Troopers 3. I'm not even sure if that's really a thing, but I have heard. Watch the original movie once, right, so that you can enjoy it. And then read the novel. You'll never watch the movie again, but that's okay. At least you did it once. Fortunately for me, I did it that way. And all I will say is the recruiting sergeant scene. I really, really want to smack the shit out of whoever wrote that scene. Okay. We are at 20 minutes into the second hour, so I got to burn at least another 30. Okay, Totes is saying that BitChute is being watched. Of course it is. So is YouTube. So is everything. All right. That's the truth. You can't so much as send a text message without somebody at some agency somewhere knowing. That's the truth. It is what it is. Totes is worrying that BitChute's days may be numbered. Yeah, I'm not too worried about that. Generally speaking, it just is what it is. You know what? Don't talk about bombing the White House on YouTube. You'd probably be okay. And fuck all y'all. Here is some of the spice that I think it was Black Magic was hoping for. It's 2009, 2010, 2021, 11 years ago. Somebody explained to me how Echelon really works. A shipmate of mine worked for the NSA. That's how he knew. Every time you do anything in a text message, in a video, in a this, in a that, in a whatever else, a machine somewhere is catching it. All right? It doesn't matter what you did. They're looking for certain keywords. Every time you use one of those keywords, let's say bomb, that gives you a point towards, well, you have to get so many points in such and such a time frame. You can get 10,000 points over the course of your entire lifetime and not trip the algorithm. Or you can say it twice in one sentence and trip the algorithm because you said 4 other related keywords. Right? Bomb, White House, assassination. Okay. This one time doing it would not trip probably not trip the algorithm. If it did, all that would do is somebody like my shipmate would then go through this file and look and see, is this a credible threat? Do we need to look at this? That's how Echelon really works. Worst part about it is NSA doesn't actually do anything. They just know, okay, Mandatory Carey said bomb, White House assassination, all in one sentence. And we're looking through the rest of this and we're realizing, yeah, this is somebody we actually do need to watch. They pass that to the FBI or the CIA or whoever the hell it is that they're supposed to pass it to, who will actually watch me. I'm pretty sure my file at the NSA, is used for trainees. Okay. I'm pretty low tier shit for them. And yes, that was an act of treason. I'm okay with it. Okay. Oh, I'm going to suspend one subject. Cheese Bear asked, did you watch the Stand Down to Extremism video I recommended? Yes, I did. I watched this video very carefully. Normally, I watch videos on YouTube at 2 times speed. And I started out watching this one at 2 times speed when I realized, no, I need to go back and watch it at regular speed. And in point of fact, I actually had to pause it, back up 5 seconds, and go at 75% speed. Fast enough to sound like natural speech, but slow enough that I can understand every single letter they're using. That Stand Down, if you watched it just by itself, would look pretty normal, par for the course. All right. It would sound like normal military training. It would sound like the things you're probably told about from first grade until at least 10th grade. All right. Major, you lie, your feet stink, and Jesus hates your ass. And I know you're Army. I don't care. Outside of that video, know that there's also a whole lot more that you're not telling your audience. Isn't there, Major? Oh, you tried to lie to me, lady, and I caught you because I already knew about the other things your office had done. What was it? Judge, Advocate General, Military Law School, something like that. This is the people who are training future military lawyers. Holy shit, no wonder we're in so much trouble. You lie standing there to the very people you're supposed to be instructing. Well, no wonder we're in so much fucking trouble. So, I'm going to hit on this next. I'll hit on this in the evening stream in a lot more detail. You don't have to say something that is fundamentally, factually, provably untrue in and of itself. You don't have to say, 2 plus 2 equals 5 to be a liar. You can say 2 plus 2 equals 4 if we all know that 2 plus 2 is not 2 plus 2. Or the first 2 is not 2. If it's 2 plus 2, or 1 plus 1 plus 1, we know that the 4 is not a 4 either. Oh, crap. Sorry, guys. Battery was running low. So, Major, the hell was her name? Do not lie to me. I don't appreciate it at all. Fuck you, lady. Excuse me. With all due respect, ma'am. Fuck you. You think I'm maybe a little bit mad, guys? No. What's the thing that pisses me off the most, Luke? Tell the crowd what pisses Carrie off the most. All right. Actually, Cookie to the first one that says it. Never fucking lie to me. And by the way, no, Toads, this is not a case of math is racist. Math is just dishonest. Or, more to the point, figures do not lie, liars figure. All right. Moving on. All right. Normally, the pattern is a section of Dataslav and then, or a section of Get Home Bag and then Dataslav. Today, I've reversed the process because this section, Dataslav, was very, very long. Whereas this is pretty simple. You've all seen this one before, too. If you have room in your bag, a light pair of gloves, common work gloves. This is a pair, I picked it up at Harbor Freight. All right. Very light work gloves. I've tested them. Their cold weather protection is very, very limited. It's better than nothing, but not much. You notice I specifically said work gloves and not warm gloves, even though my obsession with cold. This is to protect your hands in case you have to clear debris out of the way. This actually kind of goes back to something that happened. I was at Papa Carey's. My brother was there. A snowstorm had hit. Winter is racist, Squatch. That's actually kind of true. We'll talk about that some other time. Winter hit. Power lines were down everywhere. It took them like 4 days. 4 days? More than that. Anyway, it took them a week to get power back up just to Papa Carey. And Papa Carey is not the furthest out. In fact, in some of the areas closer in, because of where the lines went out, it was like 2 weeks later, and some people closer to the grid didn't have power yet. It is what it is. There were also trees down over roads literally everywhere. That was the day I figured out I probably want to start having some light work gloves. This pair, I picked them up. I think they were $12. I rolled them up and I put this elastic band over it to help keep them closed. In the event of an emergency, hey, look at that. I was not trying to do that, by the way. Throw the elastic band away. Unroll the gloves. You find a tree that's down, or you find a car that's stuck on the side of the road, or whatever. Oops. And, well, just toss them on, right? When you get past whatever the problem was that you needed the gloves for, take them off, put them in, and shove them as hard as you can into your back pocket, move on. Or you can keep them on and maybe get a little bit of protection from weather or whatever. Keep them handy. It doesn't hurt you any. These will not provide any kind of biological protection, universal protections. Right? These are not rubber gloves. They will not stop bloodborne pathogens. In fact, these will probably make bloodborne pathogens worse. But it does provide protection against trees or broken glass, limited protection against broken glass or that sort of thing. Right? And as you could see, I rolled it up pretty small. Geez, I know as a lady. So, I'm going to roll these back up and we'll hold them kind of close to the screen. And I am then going to ask a question. Hey, Cheese. My hand next to it. There we go. You think you could fit that into your purse? Okay. Cheese Bear is bringing up a very important point. In that video, this extremism stand down. In the stand down, they talk about how you should or are required. I believe maybe it was required. It was to report somebody that you think is an extremist. And that in so doing, you may be saving your colleague from getting into serious trouble. You know, you can tell a lie in such a way that it's true. And that's very, very scary. That was a lie that was told in such a way that it's technically true. You could have, in my case, I'm just going to say shipmate because that's the term I'm used to. Okay, you could have a shipmate, and I did, who was an extremist. I had a shipmate who was I do not, to the best of my knowledge, know that he was a formal KKK or neo-Nazi member, and other things later on made all of us wonder. But he had very clear opinions about black people. I will never apologize for somebody else's language. I will never change the quote. And if you don't like it, you can kiss my ass. We were tied up Portside 2 in Toronto, Ohio. Yeah. I was standing out on deck, and I saw a bunch of guys. This is almost a quarter of a mile away. A bunch of guys running down the road. I only saw it for a second. And I thought, gee, that looks like Petty Officer Adams. I'm just going to refer to him as Petty Officer Adams. Gee, that looks like Petty Officer Adams. Hey, Seaman Boyington. Was that Adams over there? EM2? I think it was EM2 or EM3. It's a long time ago. Anyway, I didn't see it. Boyington says, I didn't see it. So, okay. All right. He didn't see it. About a minute later, here comes Fireman Charles running up the gangplank saying, a bunch of niggers are chasing us. Only he shouted it. Boyington, I don't know if he didn't see him or what. Boyington pops up like a piece of toast. What did you say? Now, Seaman Carey, I was a seaman at the time, heard that. And, no, I'm not doing shit about him. Charles got the hint. A bunch of black guys are chasing us. All right, you get below. I talked to Boyington and it's like, just let it go for now. We'll talk to the OOD tomorrow or later or whatever. Called the OOD, told him what was going on. About 20 minutes later, here comes all the other guys who had been on liberty that night talking about what happened. Okay. They were chased by 4 black guys who had gotten out of a boat that had been passing under the bridge that they'd been passing over. Okay. They were being chased. Okay. Those are 2 facts that are never going to be in dispute. What's in dispute is Fireman Charles was accused of having spat on him. Oh my! Now, the rules as the Army applies them now, the day I saw the first signs that he was of interesting character, I should have reported him. Well, he was of interesting character. But you know what? I've used language just as bad. Squatch has seen it. Totes has seen it. So, am I an extremist? Well, my kikin' nigger ass can't afford to join the KKK. Oh. Also, if you come for me, you better bring extra body bags. You're going to need them. And I've said that before. Okay, Squatch said only racists care about race. I know people will say this is racist and I don't care. I don't notice. I pay attention to what you're doing and saying. Seaman Boyington is black. Fireman Charles is white. Okay. That would be a so what? I've met racist black people. Yes, that's a thing. No, until you do something to make me wonder, I don't pay attention to it. I don't care. Cheese confirmed that these gloves will even fit in her small purse. Okay. Cheese asked, it's not just your colleagues, it's your neighbor, church, or family. Please remind me who won the Cold War. Fortunately, for now, it's restricted to the military. But they had a word for this. In Nazi Germany, it was called denunciations. And you could denunciate anybody for anything. Just saying. Squatch is warning me that algorithms don't like quotes, and I don't give a fuck. Jesus. Trying to antagonize me. I don't know. Maybe I will do exactly that someday. Maybe I will hit all of the, including that F-bomb, during a live stream one day. How about that? Love you, Susan. And one of these days, how do I put this without tripping the algorithms offline? I will have an airsoft and display it on the channel. And God knows, everybody knows I don't have any real guns. My guns are all airsoft. Just ask Legalize, who's fucking cowering in a corner, probably signed out and watching, so he doesn't accidentally comment and show that he's here again. Unless he's the guy I banned that one day. Anyway, she says she was not trying to antagonize me, poke, prod, whatever. I don't care. Sometimes I need to be poked and prodded and antagonized. That's when you get the shit you really wanted. Moving right along. Oh. Okay. I should address this by Totes. He finds it creepy the way the DOJ is forcing 6 January detainees to denounce Trump in order to get a plea bargain. I should address that. I'm not going to this time. I think y'all can figure out that I'm absolutely in no way supportive of anything that DOJ is doing in this case. It's gotten to that point. Even the 2 legitimately violent protesters, DOJ can go suck a dick. I don't give a shit. Fuck them. They lie, their feet stink, and Jesus hates their ass too. You know, I'm almost starting to really appreciate that one. I'll never be a Marine, I know that, but damn, Dad, I'm starting to get it. All right, we're almost 15 minutes, a little over 15 minutes left. Get a couple of last minute questions in. I might have to hit them during the afternoon stream. A small rant. And this isn't really a rant, this is more of a... But God damn it, I gotta say this to get this off of my chest. This is Christ's Mass time. All right? 99% of you out there watching this, at least, are Christians. All right? I am well aware of the fact that Christ's Mass was moved from, what was it, early spring, late spring, early summer, when the ewes would be birthing their fowls. I think the term for sheep is fowl. All right, to the dead of winter, to enfranchise one of the pagan tribes of Germany. Oh, Carrie knows that detail too. It is what it is. And it was about enfranchising and bringing people who were outside in, right? You have this traditional celebration. We're going to move our traditional celebration to a time that conveniences you in order to get you to join us. We can do that. We can be flexible that way because we're Christians. Most of y'all don't realize that Christmas is actually a misnomer. It's 2 words, Christ's Mass. So as you're going around in the future, I would ask you to say Merry Christ's Mass to people, to write it Merry Christ's Mass, and not just Christmas. I would also, this is not exactly a request, a step below demand, but well above a request. If somebody says to you, Happy Kwanzaa, or Happy Hanukkah, or Merry Festivus, just smile and say thank you. Or reply back with Merry Christ's Mass. And don't make a thing of it. Because that was the tradition upon which Christ's Mass comes to be late December rather than late spring, early summer. Okay. Squatch is asking me about Tom McDonald. I have, I'm caught off guard here. Apparently there's a thing with Tom McDonald. All I know about him is he did a song. Blair White was in the video. That's literally everything I know right there. I didn't even watch the video. Totes is saying, godless heathen commies have a hard enough time with Christmas. They do. They do. Try and teach yourself, and I'm struggling with this too. Try and teach yourself to say it as two distinct words. Merry Christ's Mass. When you're young, Christmas is all about toys and presents and bicycles and Xbox and games and whatever. If you are a Christian, please keep in mind that the purpose of this season is to remember Jesus was born. The Christmas is the celebration of Jesus' birth, and not just a time to give presents to your kids. Squatch, I want you to email me about that Tom thing. I'm curious. And unfortunately, that's all I know. I'm sorry, guys. I got kind of ambushed with this. If you are on YouTube, sooner or later, you're going to get yeeted. It happens to the best. Well, didn't they shut down PewDiePie's channel for a month? Because he said something they didn't like, or he did something they didn't like, or whatever. That's the biggest channel on YouTube. And they shut him down. All right, they're making millions of dollars off of him, and they shut him down. Have a backup plan. Obviously, Totes' backup plan now is BitChute and Rumble. Squatch, you don't have a backup plan. I've got a backup plan. It's just not a very good one. Two of them, Full30 and BitChute. I also have a backup channel, Beyond Mandatory Carry, where I always make the joke, I swear I'm not mandatory carry. Okay, we're 10 minutes early, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, guys. Last observations. Get your get-home bag. Get it ready. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert for something in the future. Bare minimum. Water bottle, candy, or snack bars, cereal bars, enough energy to get home. Maybe your meds. And good shoes. Enough to just get home. If you can't fit a basic get-home bag into a large purse which I think is what Cheese was talking about earlier, her small purse. It might be too heavy. Just saying. Toads, Cheese is a lady. Just saying. Uh, um, I'm glad you don't work there anymore, Cheese. What was it? As he was about to be arrested, Jesus tells Saint Peter, tells his disciple Peter, before the cock crows 3 times, you will have denounced me 3 times. Oh yeah. Um. So fuck your rule. I'm wearing my cross or my crucifix. In my case. By the way, the military cannot require you to take a religious icon off, although they can say you pick one and that's it. Get your helm bag ready. I don't think it's this year, but 9017 is coming and it'd be right about this time of the year. So if you can think about what goes on this time of the year that might draw 9017, you can probably get some pretty good ideas. And be ready for that, because when it hits, it's going to cause every kind of chaos, because they're going to be shutting down cities. Cops are going to be shooting first and asking questions later. And it's not okay, and it is what it is, because they're just as overwhelmed as you are. They don't know who's friendly and who's enemy. All right, it is actually that simple. This isn't about them being bad or good or something else. They're caught in the same pile the rest of us are. There, I finally said it. When 9017 hits, cops are going to shoot first and ask questions later. They won't have too many choices either. Have your get home bag ready. 9017 is coming. Maybe next year. And keep calm and mandatory carry on.